On the Winded podcast, I was joined by Maddie McCall, content creator for MLB Network, also does a ton of freelance photography, videography for Hockey East, the PWHL. Very talented young person, all while still a student at Northeastern University. I don't know how she finds the time. Was very grateful to have her on. She also gives some great advice to young up and coming women in the sports world. It's a great listen, and the Winded podcast starts now. Welcome back to the Winded podcast. Today on the show, I have Maddie McCall, who's a content creator who does work for MLB Network, also a very talented photographer, does some freelance work, very busy covering Hockey East, all while still a student at Northeastern University. I don't know how she made the time to meet with me today, but I'm very happy to have her here. Maddie McCall, how are you doing today?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. As if people haven't figured out the theme, I'm really leaning into the women in sports. One, because it's an talked about topic. I think it's getting more attention, but there are so many talented people, especially in the Boston area, like yourself. So I just wanted to, have you come on and kind of tell your story and your process and everything that goes with that.
Yeah, I can't wait. Boston is the best, and the people I've met working here, especially my fellow women in sports, have changed my outlook on it for sure. They're the best.
Yeah, I'm starting to branch out and make some connections with people, outside of Boston. But I have just based on who I've met, I have a hard time believing that there is a more solid core of up and coming talented women in sports and media and content creation than we have right here in Boston.
I have to agree with you.
So let's get into you, Maddie. You're I was just looking at your portfolio and your work is amazing. How did you get into photography in the first place?
Well, thank you. I have not been doing photography for that long. I feel like many people have been like, "Oh, I've been doing it for 20 years." I'm only 20 years old, so don't have 20 years under my belt, but I, in high school, kinda got roped in kind of against my will. An old friend from when we were much younger, like kindergarten friend, played on my high school hockey team and was like, "We need a student manager for this year." And it was my senior year of high school, and I was like, "No, I don't wanna do that. I wanna have fun. I wanna be with my friends. I don't wanna spend every day in an ice rink. I already do. I didn't want to do it." And he was like, "No, no, no, you have to. Just run the social media, just, like, post about our games and, like, take pictures and whatever." And I was like, "Fine." I got convinced into it, and then that became, like, that was the end of that. I fell in love with it. I was really fortunate to go to a high school that had a really big, media and TV kind of focus. There was, like, a media and television academy where they really centered, like, our education around getting familiar with camera equipment, renting it out, learning how to be responsible for it. So I was very fortunate to have one of my high school teachers, like, take a leap of faith in me and be like, "Take the SD card, take the camera, go nuts, like, you'll be great at it." And I was not great at it right off the bat, but I spent every day that summer and that whole season in an ice rink and just fell in love with it. Nobody saw me all summer because I was shooting, like, U7 mini hockey first tournament ever in, like, July in the Jersey Shore. So, yeah, I fell in love with it, and that was kind of the end of that.
People take for granted, I think, and don't appreciate how much of a challenge it is. I recently got, in the last couple months, I got like a nicer camera and I was like, I want to start using it. And it is so overwhelming what it's capable of. And I just assumed like, oh, it's like obviously there's some skill to it, but I was like, but the camera, I'm assuming does most of the work, but there's so much that goes into it so to be able to get the shots that you and photographers and videographers get. I don't think people realize how hard it is because I took a camera and I went to a high school game and I was like, I cannot do this. It's too fast. I'm not getting anything. So why don't you get into that and like how much anticipation for what is going to happen plays into it, I assume. Obviously you're knowledgeable of the game and knowing what's going to happen. But take me through your process of like getting the shot.
Yeah, so definitely I think I kind of have a different outlook on it. I started in a very, like, content-centered role, like live content, which is what I do now at MLB, and just kind of that's how I grew into, like, the role was, very content-focused, so I was a social media manager in college hockey a few years ago, and you have to think, "What if this happens, if X happens, what then what?" So you have to be ready and you have to be kind of everywhere. Obviously, hockey is a very hard sport to do that. You have to be if there's a goalie making an insane save on one side of the ice, but you're trying to catch a goal on our offensive side, it's not that easy to get both. But just being flexible, moving around a lot, and thinking like, if this happens, where should I be? And being super aware of like who's coming up on a milestone, who's been on a hot streak, who so you have to kind of do your homework before and especially coming to Northeastern where we have insane talent here, but also it's like things change, people move around. We just had one of our girls come back from the Olympics, so you have a lot of movement and you have to do your homework beforehand. You have to kind of know what's going on because especially in hockey, same thing with a lot of sports, there are crazy bounces, there are things that you wouldn't expect to happen, and you just kinda have to be ready for it.
Yeah, that's great. You talk about how you started with your high school, covering high school sports. At what point did you think like, "Oh, I could do this, like, for a career, and this is something that I want to do and pursue?"
It was the most insane, like, aha moment of my life. I was sitting with our coach who happened to be, like, the dad of someone I grew up with my whole life, and I was sitting at, like, our banquet at the end of the year, and he was like, "You know, you're really good at this." And I was like, "Thanks." And he was like, "Do you like, you're going to college, like, what now what? Are you just done?" And I was like, "Well, when you put it like that, I guess I don't wanna be done. Is there an option to not be done?" And then I kinda went down the rabbit hole and I followed, like, every person who's ever done media. I grew up in the New York market, so I watched, like, um the, like, Yankees broadcaster, and I watched all of them growing up, and I was like, "I guess that could be me, but I don't wanna be on the screen," and it's like it's hard when you don't see the photographers on the broadcast, and you don't see, those more niche roles that kind of are behind the camera, and they make it happen, and they make the moments memorable, and I grew up having so many of those memorable moments being, like growing up in a sports household, I always saw those moments, and I, like, loved it, was reposting them on my Instagram my whole life, but I guess until that moment when they were like, "Oh, you're just gonna be done," I was like, "Well, I guess there's an option to not be," and that was kinda that. I was very lucky to have a sports communications program at the school I was committed to originally, so I was like, "Well, I guess we're doing that. We're gonna see what happens."
That's that's great. What was your first kind of big break, your first kind of credential thing, like, kind of your big, like, "Wow, like, I am doing this," not like, "I wanna do this, but I'm actually doing this."
Yeah, the joke at my first school and the first university I worked at was that I hired myself. I reached out to our athletic communications department and I was like, "Hi, I wanna work with your hockey team. I work here now. I'll prove myself, like, let me at it." And that was the end of that. I was there every single day. Definitely an interesting adjustment into college. I had no free time, but that's kinda how I work, if that wasn't obvious already, but yeah, so I was like, just, like, give me a shot, and I have no doubt that I will be there every day, and I'll make it worth your while, and that's I was very lucky to have gotten that shot. Came in at a good time where the people who were doing it before me had graduated, and it was, like, kind of in limbo of where they were gonna start. It was a brand new rink for the program, kind of a new chapter, and I got super lucky to be able to capture that, and then from there, I got to do the bean pot, which that was my first, like, pinch me moment. I'm standing in TD Garden, and a year ago, I was at my home high school hockey rink that's about yay big. Um, so yeah, that was the first bean pot was crazy, but just starting in college hockey, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, how did you feel when they gave you that lanyard? And 'cause I'll tell you, I cover high school hockey, and I was at the state finals last year at TD Garden, and just, like, going through, like, the back entrance, and they give you that credential, and you put it
Lanyard?
around your neck, and you're like, "This is the coolest thing ever." And, but yeah, it's just, like, kind of like a, "Wow, like, this is so cool." Like, you don't think about it in those terms because it's, when you're watching on TV, or watching highlights, it's like you don't think about all the different pieces that, like, project the images to you. It's like you just take that for granted. So to be a part of that must have been so cool.
Yeah, that TD Garden lanyard sat on my desk in my freshman year dorm for 3 months after. I just looked at it every day and I was like, "Oh my god, that really happened." But it definitely, it makes you hungry. You get a taste of it at whatever level, and then you get those opportunities to kinda get your foot in the door even when it wasn't a Bruins game, but your foot's in the door. You went in the media entrance of TD Garden, so it definitely makes you hungry and it makes you want it more in my experience.
I agree. I'm really putting in an effort on this podcast, and I've been very grateful for people like you and the other guests that have agreed to come on. And it is just, I'm doing 4 interviews today, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel like I looked at it last night, I'm like, "How am I gonna do this?" But I was like, "I want to do this." It's what I want to do. I'm gonna have hours and hours of editing afterwards and getting clips and everything together, but this is a hobby right now, and I just am loving it. Um, but it's just great to talk to people like you, and tell their story. What is your favorite sport to cover or to get pictures or video? What's your favorite kind of environment to be in?
That is such a tough one. I feel like I have to say hockey, which is not my job right now.
Yeah,
It is.
MLB, I'll cut that, MLB
Yeah,
Network.
nobody heard that, but there is something special. There's a different kind of charm with baseball. I grew up in and around baseball. That was, like, definitely my upbringing more so, and I love it. The people you meet in baseball, they have such a character about them, so, like, those kind of moments, which I personally enjoy, the kind of portraiture and the photography that you can tell is built off of a relationship with the athletes and with the organization and with the people that you're working in and around every day. You get super close to people in baseball. You're with them every day for 12 hours a day. Um, in the sun, in the rain, you see a lot of each other and you get close. And so I think the photography I have of baseball is really special to me for that reason. Same thing. I was lucky enough to be out in Vegas for the AAA World Series, and MLB trusted me with that. And that experience was very like heavily built on relationships and, like, capturing the moment for those people, and so, while hockey, I would argue, is maybe a little bit more of a flashier sport to cover from an action photography side, I think they're very different, and you maybe can't get as much of those, you're still behind glass in hockey, but in baseball, standing in the dugout and listening to them talk and yap and just be part of, like, each other's lives and understand, like, what they're playing for and what they do it for is a really special part of our job to be able to cover that, and when they have family here from the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico or wherever their family is from, they have them here and their daughter's here, those moments are so special to capture in baseball for sure.
Baseball is there's like the whole how can you not be romantic about baseball? And it's definitely not where it stands in this country right now is not what it was as far as like as beloved. But I think the people that are in on baseball, they're all in. So it's a very genuine passion and care and everything that goes into it. So I would imagine from that perspective, it makes it very enjoyable to cover.
Yeah, and we joke all the time, like, the coworkers you have in baseball are like, that's your second family, they see you getting rained on, they see you sweating, they see it all, and so, yeah, it takes a special kind of person to love it and enjoy it, but I'm very fortunate to have people who love and enjoy it, and those are the people I work with, and that makes it all worth the while, all the hot 12-hour game days.
So what is it like? You're still currently a student at Northeastern. What is it like where you have this job already and never mind the fact like of balancing schoolwork with work, but just knowing like, most people as they approach graduation, it's like, well, what are you going to do? You're already started on that path. So how does how does that feel and how do you balance it all?
It's interesting. It gets overwhelming at times being on, like, work meetings before class and being, kind of all over the place, being out and on trips, and when I have an exam on the way back, I was studying on my flight back from Vegas for my first midterm at Northeastern. I was like, "Okay, no worries." But it makes you a different kind of hungry, I think, to be able to have seen, I've been very fortunate to be where I am and to have this experience at 20 years old, but I have so much more I know I want for myself and I wanna do, and I have so much to, like, look forward to and work towards, and I think being able to have this experience so young and have so much more time to be able to do this is just exciting. I wake up excited to go to work, and I wake up excited to try new things. I think being young and being where I am it allows you to be creative and to try new things and to kind of push yourself and test your limits. And yeah, that's kind of how I, make the most of it. It definitely is hard. It's a balance, but I remember that I'm doing it for a reason and that's because I love it.
You being you're 20 years old. Women in sports are getting more respect and more credibility, which I'm grateful and happy for you in that regard. But it's still not a perfect world. So why don't you go through kind of what it's like being, a woman in sports? And I would, for the most part, when people think of like people that are women in the media, it's the sideline reporter and being in front of the camera. What is it like being behind the camera as a woman in sports?
Yeah, that's definitely something that has been a tricky thing to tackle, I think, for a lot of us. There's obviously less of us. You're absolutely right. There's a lot more in front of the camera than there are behind the camera. And I think it definitely teaches you a lot about building relationships. When you see another woman in sports, you kind of like it's so exciting. It's definitely a community and a sisterhood and a family because you get it. You have those experiences that definitely are they make you shake your head a little bit, and you gotta take a deep breath and just kinda remember who you are and why you're here, and you earned your spot at the table for sure, but I definitely try to look at it with a really positive light. I've been really lucky to have, someone that I've been working with who is quite a bit younger. She's in high school and she's been shadowing me and she has been following not following me, but like I have her shadow me at games and we work together and kind of go and talk about work and stuff like that. And that has meant the world to me knowing that like I maybe deal with like the occasional comment or the occasional look that makes me uncomfortable and you kind of again have to just put your head down and know that it's you're there for a reason, but I look at it with so much optimism that when she gets here and when she gets her seat at the table I'm at right now, I'm and the women I work with are building a room that is a lot more accommodating for her and for all the girls that are gonna come up and not have as much of an uphill battle and be, swimming upstream, and they'll feel like they belong here right off the bat, and that's something that definitely keeps me so grounded in my work. It's something that's so important. It's not a perfect world, you're absolutely right, but we are definitely making progress, and that means the world to me.
Yeah, I had Mackie Jenner from TSN on a couple weeks ago, who had just become the first woman to do play by play for an NLL game. And it was great to hear her kind of talk about that. And she mentions kind of a lot of the same, points of the people in front of them that paved the way, but also giving back and, you know, being aware of your spot at the table and, trying to make it better for the next wave that comes after you. Even though you're only 20 years old, there's still somebody younger than you that wants to do the same thing that you're doing, which I think that's great that you're giving back. What is the toughest environment that you've had to shoot in?
Hmm.
And it could be circumstances of like view or hostility, kind of anything that, has been a challenge for you.
Yeah, I think right off the bat, what comes to mind is the beautiful, wonderful, may it rest in peace, historic Matthews Arena. That building had a ton of charm. It was a wonderful place full of culture to shoot in. It definitely has its quirks. It was 100 years old. Um, so I think, and I also, before I got to Matthews, I was shooting in a rink that was built 2 years ago. So learning how to adjust, especially in hockey, in a sport that doesn't really give you a ton of flexibility and a ton of wiggle room. Hockey is not an easy sport to shoot from like a camera settings and a clarity perspective. So that definitely challenged me a lot, learning how to shoot in a new building that definitely had a different kind of charm. The lights were very different, the glass was very beat up. So I think that one definitely comes to mind. I have loved my time in that building, and it was so special to shoot in a place that had so much meaning to so many people, but from a difficulty standpoint, Matthews was a toughie for sure.
What was it like to say goodbye? I'm assuming you were there for the final game, and it was very kind of moving to see, how much that building has meant to the city, but obviously to Northeastern. And usually you don't see buildings get that dramatic of a send off like they're a player retiring or anything like that. Usually, like when the new stadium is built, it's like, oh, we just move across the street and just forget about that one. But there was that Matthews really meant something to Northeastern and the city. So what was it like being there for that event?
I will remember I was at the women's that was their senior night, the last game at Matthews Arena for the women, and Lily Shannon scored it and won it, and of course she did because how could she not? That I will remember that game for the rest of my career. It was so special, and you could just feel it, like, the building was rocking, and again, it was super cool to be there at a women's game, and everybody turned out, and it kind of reminds you the PWHL is so new and so full of excitement and more things to come, and it's so historic already in itself, but women's hockey isn't new. People have been loving this sport, and people have been playing this sport. We had all our alum come back, and it was something that's so special that, like, women's hockey is deeply rooted in the same culture that made Matthews special and made Boston hockey special, and yeah, it was so special to see a building. Because 'cause you're right, buildings don't get that kinda send off, it's a building, it's you would think it's just some bricks, but it's really not, seeing people signing the walls and all the alum with their kids come back, and it was unreal.
I'll cut this, but did you steal anything?
I didn't, I did write my name on the wall, but I didn't
Okay,
do anything.
okay. I was I'd cut it if you did, but campus police, you did not take anything from Matthews Arena, do not look this way. So, I wanna bring this up because I actually I'm, talking to her later. I'm talking to Delaney from Sports Girls Club,
Mm. Oh my
and you spent some time with Sports Girls Club. So back to kind of that, like, paving the way and doing a lot. She's doing a ton, and, talk about your kind of experience working with Sports Girls Club.
Delaney is wonderful. That whole organization was wonderful. That was very early on. That was one of the first things I did in sports, and I think that has so much to do with the way I'm rooted in and the way I look at, my career and my place as a woman in sports. It taught me right off the bat that I earned my seat here, and just the culture that they kind of root in all the girls that work there, and I'm still friends with a lot of the people that I did girls club with. It's such a community, and it definitely teaches you so much about yourself. Yeah, you're making content for the Instagram. Yeah, you're working, you're an intern, whatever, but it teaches you so much. You learn so much about who you are as a person, and hearing their stories and hearing how, maybe some of the things that they've been through that were not ideal, but how they kind of handled that and how to like handle it yourself based off how they did. They're some of the most composed, eloquently spoken women I know. And yeah, they're the best. Working at Sports Girls Club definitely was such a foundational part of my career. And I speak so highly of it and recommend it to anybody who is like younger and, because I think my background and my time there, I think it would have made my journey a lot harder, and I maybe wouldn't have been so able to, put my head down and remember who I was and why I was here without that background. Because it really does, it teaches you so much, and you learn exactly why you're doing what you're doing.
It really is an incredible organization. I kind of discovered it while I was, going down this path of trying to book guests and influencers and content creators. And even still, I didn't grasp, like, how big of a, like, machine that it is, and there's so many different kind of spin-off, kind of split off things that are all built under that umbrella. It truly is, like, a very impressive organization, and to see, like, the tour that she went on and, like, just the response that she gets when she goes places, it's really cool, and I definitely wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, all good things. It's incredible what she's doing for the sport.
Who has been your favorite athlete to photograph? Is there anyone that you when you go to a game, you're like, "I know that this person's gonna give me something?"
I have a few, I think. There are definitely some in the farm system for the Yankees. I know, ooh, this is a hard question. Definitely a lot of the up and coming guys for the Yankees are a lot of fun. We had a lot of good Yankee rehabs. Jazz Chisholm Jr. was just electric to have in Somerset. I think that one was probably a given, but I definitely remember his week in Somerset was a heck of a week, kept us all very busy, kept us on our toes, but he was a lot of fun to have. He was super patient and super cooperative. We obviously had a ton of ideas that we wanted to, kind of rope him into, and he was super down for all of it. So much appreciated. And definitely the Northeastern women are a lot of fun. Eloise Perron is a lot of fun. Lily Shannon. They're just such a talented group, and they make it a lot of fun. They score some crazy goals. They have some crazy, they're just crazy talent. So they make it super interesting.
Staying in Hockey East, were you at UMass over the weekend for that game?
This last weekend? No, I
UMass UConn? Did you see what happened?
Oh, I did see what happened though. Yes, my mom
Have
sent it to me. I was like, "Oh my god."
have you ever seen anything like that covering games?
Not to that extent. We did have, last year, we have like, at Sacred Heart, we had a lot of students running, like, that side of things, running in the booth. We had a moment where Hell's Bells came on over the national anthem. That was a funny one. And then the opening game against Boston College when Sacred Heart opened the Martiri Family Arena, the goal horn kept going off when no goals were scored, and we couldn't exactly figure out how to, rein that in, so there are definitely some funny moments. It's funny when students do it, that's how you learn. Hell's Bells during the anthem was a silly one. A friend of mine, was like, "Oh my god, I'm quitting."
Were they both playing, like, at the same time, or
Oh,
did it, like,
yup.
cut?
No, overlay, like, over the national anthem. I was like, "Honestly, kinda fire." I
It
kinda
probably
like
sounded I'll have to look that up if there's video of it 'cause that
Yeah,
sounds
it was
awesome.
electric. I was like, "I don't know, I kinda thought you did it on purpose. Just say you did."
Just mashing up the national anthem and Hell's Bells is great.
Yep.
So you've covered, baseball, you've covered NCAA. What would you like to cover that you haven't?
I've done the PWHL, that was a lot of fun. More PWHL, gotta get to an NHL game. It's gotta happen. But it definitely, like, I was super into the Winter Olympics and people were so creative. Oh my god, the photographers at the Winter Olympics were doing some of the best work I have ever seen, and it was so inspiring. But winter sports like skiing and figure skating and all of those, there's so much room to be creative. So definitely, I think especially being in so far up north, I don't know why it's been such an untapped market for me, but yeah, definitely the like Olympic winter sports are on my list for sure. They're so interesting.
Those overhead shots from the Olympics were unreal. Like,
Yes.
it's and I don't know if you I'm sure you did, but did you see that the guy who was controlling it was using, like, an Xbox controller to, like, take the pictures?
Yep, totally.
I've never seen anything like that. That was crazy.
You gotta get creative.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's such a complex thing that people just take for granted how it's like, "Oh, that's just what" you just take it for granted. It's
Yeah,
that
point and
it's easy exactly. But, you see people can't even work the camera on their phone. And then they think that it's just, "Oh, it's the camera."
right.
But, you're obviously, like I said, you're young, you're still in school, and you've accomplished so much already. What are your long-term goals? Where would you like to end up? And, yeah, where do you see yourself, 5, 10 years from now? Would you like to be?
Hypothetically, in a perfect world, I would love to be in baseball still. I absolutely love it. My time at MLB has been nothing short of amazing and inspiring and has changed my view on it's working in sports entirely. So I'd love to be in baseball, but baseball's not all year. So I would love to be in hockey. I would love to be in the NHL and the PWHL. Professional hockey is so special and the venues you shoot at and the places you kind of go and the access you have, it really creates you can make such an interesting story and tell such an interesting story with photography and videography in those venues, in those places that are so special to so many people. Similarly to my experience at Matthews, working at TD Garden, it's so special. You can feel it. And meeting people and traveling. So yeah, I want to be in hockey and I want to be in baseball and I want to just build on what I've already been able to do because I'm super grateful for it and it has meant so much to me and taught me so much that I feel like I owe it to myself to kind of see, as good as it can get.
Last one, what would be some advice that you would give to a younger girl that wants to get into photography, videography in sports media?
Well, you just gotta try it. You just gotta pick up a camera. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna look bad. You just need to try it. You just need to play around. You can't be scared to start, even though it is scary to start. You're probably gonna be the only girl in the room. You're gonna be, you're gonna stick out. I have bleach blonde hair. You're gonna stick out a little bit. So you have to get familiar and get comfortable with sticking out and, kind of for a little while, put your head down and do what you love and do what you do. And then just like remember that you're doing it for you. And people can say things and people can make comments and you'll probably feel uncomfortable every now and again, but you do it because you love it and you earned your spot where you are. I think staying so grounded and knowing that you earned your spot at the table and you earned where you're supposed to be, nobody handed it to you and nobody was going to, is so important. That's the biggest piece of advice somebody gave me, and it's something I will keep with me forever.
That's great advice. Maddie McCall, this has been so much fun. Why don't you tell people where they could find your work and where they can keep up with your career?
Yeah, I'm at Mads Ringside on Instagram, on TikTok, on just about everything, but my Instagram is kind of my main, active live portfolio. I do a lot on there, and yeah, I'll be with MLB this summer in the New York markets, and I will be with Hockey East the rest of the way. The girls have a game right after this.
Awesome. Well, good luck, Maddie. It was great talking to you, and we'll talk again soon.
Yes, thank you.